Okay, well, awesome. Amos, so glad that you could join me today for this interview. Um, I'm
Thanks, Nancy.
excited, I'm excited to share a little bit about you and what you've got going on with my Facebook community.
Okay, well, I'm super pumped to be here. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
Totally random on the fly, and I love it.
well, let's start with the big question. Kind of
Okay.
what was your inspiration for the Empower Network TV?
Well, I felt I was supposed to do it. So I felt I was supposed to carry it out and build it. But before that happened, I had tried to be a coach. I always say a coach in speaker quotation marks because I was not a good coach. And I found out after a year and a half of coaching that, I wrote some books, created some ebooks, audiobooks. I found out it requires to be a coach, trainer, speaker, author. Working with people requires a lot of patience, and I'm not wired for that. I'm more the sales marketing side. And so I found out, Nancy, after I tried my attempt at being a coach for a year and a half, I wasn't cut out for it. Plus, it was super exhausting trying to do your coaching, your thing, your speaking thing. You wear that hat. And then I had to take that hat off when I wanted more clients and then put the hat on of the sales and marketing. It's two completely separate things. So I was frustrated when I was coaching, going, well, which one is it? Am I a coach or am I a marketer? Why do I have to do both of these jobs? These jobs are completely different than one from the other. And so I felt frustrated already before I got the idea for this. And so when I got the idea for this whole thing of solving the marketing piece for coaches forever, because there's three things they have now. The first is they have to have access to a whole lot of people, basically marketing, that come into contact with who they are. The second is they typically need their own ecosystem or Facebook group or community where they can bring the people they've met into more relationships. They can deliver value and create community connection, so that number three, when they pitch their services, their sales funnels, their whatever they're selling, there's relationship because of number two. But it all starts with number one, which is this thing of where do I find potential people to market myself to? So I didn't want to have to do both hats. So when I got the idea for this, I was like, well, this makes a lot of sense because I hated having to do both myself.
Mhm. I can totally relate to that. I keep getting stuck on that as well. I love the delivery, but it's going out and finding the people, and it's a full-time job just to do that on its own.
Oh,
So, yeah. So,
yeah.
what do you think what are some of the qualities that you have that make you a really good fit to lead this initiative?
I'm a self-starter. I move very fast. I don't wait for perfection before I begin. I know how to, most of the time, not perfectly, but most of the time, give the right carrots or find the right carrots to get people to take action. So, and I really value culture and everyone kind of feeling welcomed. So it's not been that much of a stretch for me to create this community, which and incentivize others to help it grow by incentivizing the behaviors you want to see happen. Because sales marketing has always come naturally to me. Again, coaching did not. So if this is seen as successful, it'll be partially from my efforts and partially from the fact of what I stated. I don't think that if you just allow people to show up and give them the rewards for being the best parts of them that they innately want to be, such as you said yourself, Nancy, you said you want to do fulfillment. So the goal of what I'm trying to create and creating is an ecosystem that allows you to fulfill so you don't have to do the stuff you don't want to do. Because the stuff you don't want to do, you're wired that way, Nancy, for a reason. And if I asked you to be a sales marketer and I said, I'll do your job, you do my job, both of us would go nuts because you're wired and really good. You're very detail oriented. You're very relationships. These things really matter to you, working, delivering, producing within that thing of instructing, teaching, holding hands. And that to me is not where I shine. So the goal of this is to create this ecosystem. And I see it as a challenge. So I actually want to create the ecosystem. I want to create the win-win situations so that people can just come and there's a seat with their name on it and they just plug in who they are and it works for them.
Wow, that sounds very, very empowering. I love the name that you've chosen too for the Empower. So tell us a little bit about how your life has changed since you started this journey with this
Oh
event.
my gosh.
That's
Okay, so
a lot there.
I've been stretched a whole lot. No, okay, I should start with that. Number one, I want to that so erase that. We'll come back to that. Number one, I've been inspired a whole lot because I've done 192 events now since January
Wow.
15th.
Wow.
So 160 of those easily have been interviews. Um, Another six of those have been interviews by other people. The people starting to do group interviews. So as a community, we've done 192. And then I've hosted about 25 or 28 events like roundtables, micro summits. So sitting with what I would say are all these giants, hearing their stories of how they learned, how they fell down, how they overcame, how they had to dust themselves off and get back up and okay and reassess where am I going, how am I doing life. In these interviews, they bring out what I this is how I terminology I use. They bring out their 3 or 4 or 5 gold nuggets, their pearls that they've accrued, Nancy, over 20, 30, 40 years. And they just display them. And so my job is to ask questions and then shut up and let them talk. And they inevitably bring their valuables to the table. And every time I interview someone, without fail, I just fully expect, because I saw the pattern from the beginning, that God is going to teach me something amazing through these interviews. And so I come out more blessed. I come out a little smarter every time. So, number one, it's inspired me because I get to grow. Number two, it's stretched me because parts of me absolutely have had to grow, and that's been painful sometimes. I've fallen down sometimes. I've made a bunch of mistakes, which is part of the learning process. So it's been inspiring, it's been a challenge, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm leveling up. I'm in the middle of a 100-day road trip now across first Canada for 1 month because I come from Vancouver on the West Coast. 1 month across Canada, and then at Toronto area going down south for 2 months in the States. And I feel scared about this trip. I gave up everything. I literally my life is in my car except for a couple boxes at my dad's and a bunch of pictures of my daughter. Um, I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I just feel like I need to go. And so I'm going to go and support the network as I go. But I'm also doing this as a sojourn to step out because I need to level up in order to support the growth of the community. I've been able to support the growth to this point, but I want to explode. And so I have to put myself intentionally in a position that I feel aligned to take, which is to launch out, throw myself out there and let go of old versions of myself so that I can lead the way to lead the charge for what is going to come next, which is going to be this global explosive expansion over the next couple of years. And so I have to go and prepare myself for that, which means letting go of all these old tapes of who I was, all these things I've clung to. And that's why I feel scary because I've left my nest. I'm on the edge of the nest and I'm about to jump off and push out. And I'm excited, but it's also scary.
Yeah, but aren't you feeling supported by this community? I mean, it seems amazing. And
Yeah.
for any of you guys out there that haven't heard any of the interviews, if you haven't joined the Empower Network TV, join it, listen to some of the interviews. What I've been finding is that the people that I need to hear from are just showing up. I mean, the things that I want to learn, somebody comes on and talks about it, things that are just so intriguing to me. So I'm super excited about how this content is going to evolve and be able to just support me on what I want to grow in, this having this huge community. So it sounds like you've got a lot going on, a lot planned over the next 2 months. What is one thing you would have done differently looking back now in starting this up or really in addressing it? Give us a lesson that you might have learned.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't have done it differently because I was where I was, but lessons, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Oh,
I tried to carry too much of it in the interview process on my own because I love interviewing
right.
people. And I was, Nancy, I was scared. maybe I was scared. I was definitely cautious, if not scared. I was very cautious about letting others start to do group interviews. I didn't realize how well it would go. Your
Mhm.
sister
Yeah.
did two or three. Great job. Arletta done two. Yetta's done one. Is it? I'm forgetting someone. I think. Forgive me. I'm forgetting someone. I think. But uh, get letting others have some of the reins. I should have. I'm glad that that's worked well, and I can see that people are carrying that. So as we roll out the next thing, the rewards app with the group interviews and all that stuff that's rolling out some point in the next month, I'm excited that there's wonderful people like yourself that are able to step up into your strengths.
Mhm.
And because they understand the culture, they're gonna safeguard that and but put their own flavor on it, which is right, which they should do. And so it's about empowering others. I wanted to empower people, but that whole thing about like, well, I don't know, this was started with interviews. Can I really trust others to do interviews? What are they going to do? What if it falls flat? But it went really well. And so that would be one thing that I would have liked to have learned sooner, Nancy, but I
Yeah.
didn't. So I only learned it this last month.
Well, I think a lot of us have that challenge to letting go, especially on things we start, and the bigger thing you even said there though is asking for help. I think that's one of the things that all of us are challenged with. It's either the bravado that we don't think that we need help, or like you said, it's fearful of letting go of a portion of that and giving somebody else some level of control. But when we do it, we can see some amazing rewards, and we get the benefit of that time back and being able to expand ourselves into other different areas. So that is awesome. That's a great lesson. And what about the distinction or the uniqueness of this community that is starting to form in Empower Network TV as opposed to some of the other educational platforms and communities that are out there? Where do you see this and where do you want to take this so that it does have a distinction between the others?
Well, this is far more relational and culture based. The platforms I've experienced, they do wonderful jobs. They provide valuable products and services, but there's not the same culture and there's not the same connection piece. It's more transactional, and there's a real place and time for that. I'm not against that at all, but this begins and ends with human connection and serving others and creating wins for others so that which is why the interviews are done in the way I don't have, and nothing wrong with people do like to do it that way, but I don't lead with pre questions in my mind. I literally, my goal in interviews is to connect with their heart, to hear their why, because people only buy, I believe people only buy from people who align with their values or their beliefs. So they have to hear their why. And to hear their why, you got to go take people into their story so they can, because we find ourselves, we see ourselves in story. This is why Hollywood movies that are successful always have the hero's two journeys, the external journey. Katniss Everdeen goes to the Hunger Games, but we don't care about that unless we see the internal journey of how she changes as she goes to the Hunger Games. Or Luke Skywalker goes to the Death Star, but how he changes. So my goal in the interviews is to get their heart. I want people to see their heart. Yes, and also we talk about their business. So the difference we're going to do in Empower Network TV is yes, we're going to, streaming service down the road, coaching stuff, influence streaming stuff to be bought for sure. We're a transactional society. But I believe more importantly than that, we're relational. We need connection, we need inspiration, we need a safe place to belong. And that is first and foremost what this is about. It's about, I don't want to say the politically correct inclusivity terms they use, because they're, in my mind, they're going overboard. But in turn, because there's no personal responsibility in what they're trying to push, there needs to be both personal responsibility, a balance of that, and a balance of inclusivity, so that people can come to a table, and if they want to show up and participate in a certain way, they do it in a community that's going to accept who they are, and also ask them to operate in personal responsibility, because we need both in life, or else it's mayhem, or else it's totally selfishness. So we need both. And so what we're doing is creating a culture of personal responsibility. If you don't like your life, change it. And here's
Right.
some great inspirational stuff to change it so that you can rise and become who you want to be. Because ultimately, we have to let go of the victim mindset if we're ever going to step into being the victor in our life, the champion. So it's both those things that is important for this culture in order to thrive and to be very unique from what's already being offered in the world. And what's being offered in the world is wonderful, but this is going to be a different offering in the world.
And I have to agree, it is becoming an amazing community already. And, I'm being called to step out way more than I have before. Doing this is just a simple sign of that as well. And I'm looking forward to my first, influencer and getting to practice. It feels like a safe community, a safe environment where I can practice. And if I mess up, I won't feel judged, but I feel like I can just, continue, learn the lesson and move on. But I know we're getting close to time. Is there anything else you wanted to say that we didn't cover?
Well, Nancy, for your first time, you're doing great. So
Thank
congrats
you.
to you. Way to step up. You're stepping up. Great job. And and yeah, you're right. It's a safe place where there's lots of mistakes. I try to lead and show my mistakes, because this whole thing about perfection is a joke. We don't go forward if we're not willing to make mistakes and fall down and skin our knees. And so I'm glad you feel safe. That makes my heart happy that you feel safe, that you can just come in and just try something new. Because there's room to make mistakes, that's celebrated here. And because then we have a baseline, this or better, this or better. And so I'm really happy you said that today. That makes me, yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you. And I feel that's from my heart. This is not a made up story. This is what's bringing me out and bringing out, allowing me to contribute more. And it is about, you've created such a safe space for service that we can give first, and then we can learn, for those of us who have a challenge receiving, we can learn how to receive too. So I'm super
Yeah.
excited about where this is going. Like I said, the quality of the interviews that I've been listening to have just been popping up about what I need to hear at the time. And I think there is that trust, and, go out there and explore, see what is out there. And I'm looking forward to, as we move further and further on into this ecosystem, to see how this develops, because it's going to be a very cool product.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here, Nancy. I'm thankful that you're a part of this. And, you're one of those people that has different skill sets than me. And so, in a good way, you stretch me, because this is what we do for each other. If we know we're in the right place, if there's an agreement of acceptance, but there's also challenge. There's room to challenge ourselves, to challenge each other. Because if we want better, we have to become better. We have to see ourselves as better. We have to surround ourselves intentionally with those that are going to stretch and challenge us in a good way, but stretch and challenge us, which means a little bit of pain sometimes. But that's okay, because if we're believing for a better tomorrow, we have to be willing to embrace a somewhat agitated today. That has to be a part of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But I do feel like this community has so much to contribute, and there's so much,
Yeah.
information out there, even things that I haven't even considered. And you can kind of, pick and choose. Does this feel right for me or does it not? And, you just, yeah, you watch what it feels good for you, and you move on from what doesn't. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of people to get involved. I know a lot of talented friends that I have out there that I'm very excited to get connected to this community, to see if it's a good fit for them. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your amazing travels. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. But yeah, have a great day, and we'll catch up.
Well, Nance, it's my joy to do this with you. So it's a joy to do this with you. So thank you for hosting me today.
All right. Bye, Amos. You have a great
Okay.
rest of your day.
Chat soon.